we don't talk about kind of the macabre side of you do this so that when they're gone, you have it and future generations have it. Now, the person I'm filming, they always end up getting that.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek podcast. Today we have Chance McClain. Very interesting podcast today. He's a master storyteller, visionary behind heritage films. He has 800 cinematic documentaries crafted. He captures the spirit of families and founders in a way that inspires and preserves. I wish I had known this guy back, when my grandfather was still alive, just to capture his stories. He's lived a life as diverse as projects. He's Army veteran. Thank you for your service. And he's done Broadway musicals to radio waves and film reels. Chance's passion for connection and storytelling makes him the ultimate guest. That's why he's on, and he's going to talk to us about preserving legacies. How you doing, Chance?
Good, man. Boy, you sure did make me sound important.
Well, you know what? I think you are.
Yeah.
People like you that do what you do, I think it's extremely important because the kids nowadays, number one, they don't know history anymore, and they don't care, don't even think about what did their grandfathers do, what did these important people do in their lives, and I think building that legacy is extremely important. So tell us, Chance, a little bit. How did you get involved? Doing this type of filmmaking?
Yeah. So after failing out of a couple colleges, I met a girl and decided to join the Army. Joined the Army. Did 4 years of that was a lot of fun in peacetime, and then had a bunch of sales jobs and found myself working in radio. And I was a creative director of a sports radio station here in my hometown in Houston. And then within a couple years, I was program director of a station we started. And you got to keep in mind, this is like the mid 2000s, whenever kind of the convergence of all tech was happening. And here we were in this Marconi's ancient invention of radio. But I felt like we needed my jocks, my guys, we need to all be able to do radio, do video, do blogs, do podcasts, use social media. That's when all that stuff was getting popular. And I leaned heavily into the video side of that. And then in 2011, left radio to do video full time.
Hmm.
TV commercials, pretty much anybody whose check would clear, I'd put it on a screen.
Sure.
Then about a decade ago, a buddy of mine from not from the sports radio world, Michael Berry, he's a talk show host. He asked me to film his dad. His dad was turning 75, and he's like, "Dude, I want to know, I want my kids to know about their pawpaw. They're too stupid to ask right now, but one day when he's gone, they're going to really want to know about their pawpaw's life." And that's the first heritage film, and now we've done a whole crap load of them.
And again, I think that is just back when we were young. You had the VH films, you had the Super 8s, and those things were worn out and barely audible, and as far as the video. So what you do, I think, is extremely important, especially if you enjoy your heritage and there's something to talk about.
Yes,
Um,
sir. Yes, sir. You nailed it.
so
And yeah, the
yeah,
technology
go ahead.
finally.
I was
Yeah,
going to talk to you about
yeah.
some of the stories.
Well, yeah. I mean, what you were just saying, given the nature of your show, the tech finally caught up with stuff that we always wanted, right? And you can look back. We show up with families in the 80s. We get a buttload of these VHS tapes that they set up that big old camera and they talk to their pawpaw that was born at the turn of the century and pepper him with questions. And now it looks like crap, but at least they got it. And if you go back 10 years before that, we find a lot of families that had these. Remember the Radio Shack tape recorder? Well, they would do these audio recordings of grandma talking about whatever. Well, now we're doing the same thing. Just the technology has it so that we can do that, but it looks like Netflix. It looks, I mean, they're very professional, they're awesome. But at the root of it is a long conversation that I have with the loved ones, and then professional editing and all that stuff. Basically, anybody could do this, and I encourage everybody to do it. Get your iPhone out, do it yourself. At the end of the day, you'll want this, but if you want it white glove and awesome, then call me. That's, yeah,
And also, for all the founders that are out there listening, you guys have started your tech companies or other type of companies. And yeah, I think it's important to put down in video and words the founders of the companies also. So it's not just families, right? I mean, you're
correct.
doing founders.
Absolutely right. And again, all the different areas that we've branched into, it used to be just I go film dad or mom and dad. And then after the volume of productions that we're doing, we noticed that a lot of these dads started companies in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whenever it was. And the business owner, the business founder, it's kind of a different thing. That business they started, particularly if it turned into a multi-generational, dude, it's a character in their film. They don't talk about it like I went to work. They talk about it similarly to how they talk about their freaking 40-year-old twins. Like it is their baby, dude. And
Yeah.
so we kind of charted a path for people that felt like that was very important. Same thing with farm and ranch. We now have a division that's farm and ranch films because the land itself, it's kind of like a founder film,
Mhm.
but generally we're further on into the generations when we're filming the people, but where the land is a character in the movie. Lots of fantastic stories out there and
Yeah.
discover new ones every week.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So, give us kind of a behind the scenes look and some storytelling, if you can, of some fascinating things that you've done.
Oh my goodness. It's like pick a
Yeah.
region and then I share a story from there. I we did a film for this gentleman who's like a 70 something year old guy. This is up in the shadow of Mount Hood up in Oregon. And he's an architect and I'm like, "Cool, we're going to film this architect." Well, when he gets into the stories, it turns out in 1968, he was like a 20-year-old kid at Berkeley and started getting into the whole 1968 Berkeley scene, but not so much as a participant in the scene, but more on the business rewards, entrepreneurial founder side of the drug scene. And next thing you know, he is basically a drug runner. And I don't mean for a summer. I mean into the late 70s. And that little chapter of his life ended with him like turning state evidence against bigger drug people. And yet he got out of it. It was all good. It was a chapter of his life. And he goes on and on and on. And now he's got kids and now he's got grandkids and it starts an architectural firm. And he's just some grandpa down the road now. But behind that grandpa is this dude with an insane, like out of Miami Vice background. For real. I'm talking speedboats and airplanes.
Yeah. Wow. That's you never know. Some of the guys that I hang out with, I do a lot of charity work. It's some of the Medal of Honor recipients. And, it's like, oh my goodness, I know there's some official History Channel type stuff like that, but some of these people, they're just, what's up, Grandpa? You know,
Oh, I hope, yeah.
and you sit down and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
you're the badass before Rambo was the badass.
Dude, I got a story for you, man. Oh God, okay, make me not say that again, but you know what I mean. So last year we were watching the RNC on TV, and they start talking about this World War II vet that's going to come out and give a speech, and out comes this old man and gets up there at the microphone, and I'm like, holy crap, it's Bill Peckrell. A year before we were in Wisconsin filming his film for his family. And I'm like texting the crew, texting my buddies, it's Mr. Peckrell, he's on TV right now. And that guy, he's like this little 5'4" guy. He was second wave Normandy, but literally followed the path of Band of Brothers. Everywhere they went, he went right behind them. And there were stories that he shared that were harrowing about laying in a pile of bodies, pretending to be dead while the Germans were bayoneting people. Like, what the hell? Not just a little grandpa, a total badass.
Absolutely. It's just amazing. And these things need to be preserved because, I'm afraid that generation after generation, you know, I asked some 20-year-olds, well, I had someone come up to me and say, Happy Memorial Day. I'm like, Yeah,
So,
yeah, well,
yeah, I know.
isn't this your day? And I'm like, well, no, I'm still here.
I'm alive. Right. Yeah.
I'm a Veterans Day guy, but my grandfather, the people that we lost, and you'd be nice to it, or why do we celebrate the Fourth of July? They just don't know these things
I
anymore.
know.
So it's important to somehow document, whether or
Yep.
not they watch it or not. I don't know, but
Dude, I can tell you that. I say dude so much. I'm Mr. Gen
that's
X.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
They absolutely do. And when I started the company, I thought this is going to be for posterity. They're going to put it on a DVD. We were doing DVDs back then. To your younger audience, these are these round silver things that play movies. Um, and I thought they would just be tucked away in a safety deposit box. And then when Papa dies, let's watch Papa's life. And that just hasn't been the use case. It's been they have a blast, and I think it's the younger the person, the more they like it. And I think it's because it looks like HBO documentaries. It's the same equipment, it's the same process, the same quality control, and so there's a familiarity to quality documentary films, except for it's your grandma or it's your dad and it's him. And so now the families they watch them at Christmas and family gatherings. It's just on in the background. And so again, you've probably heard if you work in the entrepreneurial space, there's the company you plan, the one you build, and the one that actually exists. Those are three different companies.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with the products that we were making. I thought they were going to be this, they turned into this, and then here's how they're really used. They're really watched. They wear them
Yeah.
out.
So let's talk about, you've done a lot of these, ladies and gentlemen, he's done over 800 of these type of documentaries. Um, what are some of the personal things, professional things, some of the things that you've learned that you could take away just sitting there, just like, oh, wow, I never thought about this. Or, you know what, based on what he just said, I might change my business, just that learning and mentorship kind of secondary while you're filming.
Sure. Well, we were talking prior to rolling, and the values of the generations before us are inarguably better. I'm talking about work ethic, grit, things like that. And having talked to hundreds of people that have been through the grind and are now on the other side of it, when they reflect on it, it turns out that there are no shortcuts. It really does take pushing yourself and doing hard things. And I had a guy that I did his film and he turned into a mentor, and he literally had this line where he said, something with his wife. He had to get up at 3 in the morning instead of 5 for like a year because he was a farmer. And I said, man, Jacko, that must have been hard. And he looks up and he's like, what does hard got to do with anything? And he wasn't saying that as like a punchline in an 80s action movie. He literally was wondering why Mr. Suburb Boy was worried about something being hard. Because on the farm, hard is just a word that's in the way of getting some stuff done. And he had similar thoughts on busy. Don't tell me you're busy. You're just complaining to me. Don't tell me you're busy. Oh, you own your own company and you're busy. You should be grateful to God. And tired. Nobody wants to hear you're tired. And you take those three things and hand it out to anybody that's running their own shop. Don't share that things are hard. Don't share that you're busy, and don't share that you're tired. Now, there are people in your life where it's appropriate to share that, and that would be the person you married. Maybe your mom and dad, if you've got that type of relationship where they're helping you through stuff still. But the rest of the world doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
That's a little small one that I think matters.
Let's talk about someone. We talked about Oregon a little bit. Was there someone you're like going, you know, you can't believe that these people do what they did, or is there some other or a funny, give me another story. 'Cause, I mean, we could talk about stories probably for the entire podcast,
Yeah.
so I'm curious. Give us another story of just something that stood out.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on the military thing, probably because you look like you can still serve. Um, the we did very often on our forms we have a line that says, "Please do not discuss," and because I need to know any landmines to stay away from. And as you can imagine, people in their upper 70s, the Vietnam era, will very often write Vietnam. People a little older than that might write Korea, and the 27 World War II films I wrote would often write World War II. Well, over the years of doing this, I've had several guys, I can't even count how many, who, when we get to that point in their story, and I say, all right, then you go off, you're overseas for a while, but you get back and you got this girl waiting for you. And they say, Chance, I want to tell you why I don't like talking about Vietnam. And I'm like, yes, sir. And then they tell me stuff from the movies. They tell me these horror stories of what happened, and they're crying and we're crying and we get through it. And then at the end of it, I can share some of these stories with you if you'd like. And then I'm going to tell you one other military one that just blows me away. I say, Mr. So-and-so, you asked not to discuss what you just discussed, and I want to honor your request and not put it in the movie, but thank you for sharing. And they always say, it's time. It's time that my family knows about this. And man, it's pretty powerful. One such guy was a Korean War vet who told me he didn't write it down. He was happy to talk about his exploits in Korea. And he talked about going into this cave, and it was full of people, and lots of really bad things happened. And he says, but his gun jammed, and mine didn't. And so that right there, that sword, that was his sword. And it was a sword over his fireplace. I'm like, holy crap, I've been sitting here with that thing. The other one that I'll share with you very briefly, since you're a Navy man, guy on his form, it says military service. He's just put yes. Well, I won't bore you with the details, but he was on UDT Team 2, Class 2. Okay, he was 100 years old when I filmed him 7 or 8 years ago. He was an original frogman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? So now picture me in this seat talking to this old man. I'm like, you're a stud. And then I'm like, God, you're what we all aspire to be. And he's like, hold on, let me tell you about why I'm a frogman. And he didn't want to go to war. And one of the ways to get out of going to fight was keep taking classes. And he's like, and I saw this one for underwater demolition. I'm like, what are we going to underwater demolish? That'll be fun. Signs up for it, makes it all the way through. And well, anyway, he ended up having a very storied military career, but it all got started with him wanting to avoid conflict.
That's absolutely fascinating. So let's get into some of the technical stuff.
Sure.
When you started out, how has tech evolved in your industry? And it's like, oh wow, I remember slapping in the VHS tape, on the 10-pound, 20-pound camera, whatever it was. And
Yes, sir.
so what are you guys doing now,
Yeah, well, we're on our third, so we're 10 years in, and we're on our third evolution of our gear set, which is, I mean, if you think about a different business, that's a lot
Yeah.
to replace all your cameras, your lights. When we first started, we had the hot lights. If you've been on a movie set, those big bright hot that eat up. We'd plug them into somebody's trailer and it'd blow the fuses. It was a mess. So we've graduated to LEDs and different iterations of those. The cameras themselves have gotten better and smaller. We use Sony cameras now that are fantastic. But just like when we started, the lens is what matters the most. We have really good lenses, so they look beautiful. But our goal for having good tech isn't because there's a term of art that's inappropriate. We're not just slavishly addicted to getting new gear.
Yeah.
We want to get the best stuff that makes the best film to future proof it. I want the people to not even think about the gear that's in there, but behind the scenes, it's really, really quality stuff. I was going to share one other thing we have all these very nice Sony cameras with lenses and beautiful lights. We use our iPhones a lot. The iPhones you can put underwater. I'm thinking about a story of a guy that had this sick koi pond, and we wanted to film the koi. Well, you just take your iPhone and film it and go underwater, put it right on the surface. We were able to get beautiful footage. Lots of times the iPhone ends up being good, and of course, all the different action cams on our farm and ranch films that we do, we may end up on somebody's ranch and ride, a 90-year-old dude or a 70-year-old dude who's running his fence line on his Ranger. Well, we'll mount the GoPros and all the different type of fancy things. But at the end of it, I want him talking, and this is what he does. So that's a good way to do it. So all the action cameras are part of it. Of course, the drone tech, there's drones that we're using for this, that, and everything. Most often it's a very simple thing. Let's just show the house in a really neat way, and the drone does that well. the root of it though. It's the long form conversation. Make them forget that any of that crap is there. And just talk to me, man.
How many people are usually on set when you do, let's say, basic interview, 70-some-year-old, you're in their house? How crowded is it?
Yeah, like on exactly what you said, some 77-year-old lady that we're filming her life story in a day. It would be me and one person. And when we started, we were bringing out 4 and 5 people
Mhm.
because I wanted to Hollywood it up. But as the volume of films increased and we learned our jobs better, we learned that it's intimidating. These people have never been around all this crap. Somebody sitting there,
Yeah.
people behind each camera. It was too many people in the room. You lose some level of intimacy. So now we have it set up using some tech that it's just me and the people in the room while the one crew guy is in the back scanning in pictures and filming the outside and things like that. Up to our larger, we have signature films that they could be weeks, they could be multiple days, multiple parties in multiple states. Those the crews will grow up to never more than 4 or 5 people on any given location, though. There's a law of diminishing return that I think Hollywood misses.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. You could always revert back to, the old Blair Witch type of a thing where it's like going, hey, here's a couple cell phones and, no crew and,
Yeah, exactly.
and do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Chance McClain, Heritage Films, your website, people are like going, yeah, I'm thinking about this. I want to do it, or I want to learn more. Where do they go?
Go to yourheritagefilm.com. YOUR for all you people in East Texas that want to try to put an apostrophe in it. Yourheritagefilm.com. Fill out a form, say hello. And I will encourage people, even if they're not sure or the money timing isn't right, I will pass on things to help you. You need to do this. I'm telling you, we don't talk about kind of the macabre side of you do this so that when they're gone, you have it and future generations have it. Now, the person I'm filming, they always end up getting that. They understand because they wish they had this of their grandma, right? They get
Yeah.
it. But when you're the son or the daughter that's wanting to do this with mom and dad, or when you don't talk about it. They know it too, but you don't really talk about it. At the end of the day, I thought that people wanted the stories and wanted the anecdotes and wanted the lessons. But if I've learned one thing from all this, we touched on it earlier. They want the values. They want the values that their parents or grandparents had that maybe they got some of them, but at the end of the day, they're like, man, I got so busy in life and I screwed up a bunch of that stuff. But my kids and their kids, there's something great about that generation, those generations before. That's really what they want to pass along. And they think and hope that a film is going to be a good way to do it. And I agree with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I look back at some of the old films and I'm like, oh, that's where I get that from.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, that,
We call them echoes, like our inside speech. It's when you're talking to somebody, imagine you're talking to an 80-year-old man who was a boy talking about his 80-year-old grandpa. So now you just jumped, 160 years. And he's saying something about his grandpa that I know is just like his grandson. So now you're jumping more years, and like there was an echo. Yeah, my great grandpa played the violin or played the fiddle in Tennessee. He was played the little fiddle band. Blah blah. He talks about music, and then no music comes up again until I get to the grandkids, and then he's like, "Well, yeah, and Connor, my oldest grandson, he's a pianist at wherever." And there's that music that came back and you see it. It's beautiful.
yeah, fascinating. Um, so, Chance, before we leave, is there anything we just go on and on and on with stories? Um, is there anything that I missed that you'd like to tell our audience about heritage films or the importance, um, some type of a personal attribute, just how important this is, or something that I missed?
I sure can. And I'll even step outside of my own universe and just talk about, the 70 plus crowd, 70, 80, 90, the people that are the old people. You know who they are. I used to be afraid to talk to them. I really was. When I started the company, it's not that I was afraid. I just had no interest. I was like, there, different sense of humor, different jam, different vibe. They do their thing, I do mine. And now I've learned that is that is just so shallow of me. They're fascinating. They have more history. They've been around the sun more times, and
Mhm.
things happen the more times you go around the sun. You learn things, you observe things, you experience things. You see larger cycles in life, and just walk up to them. I've made it a habit whenever we're on a travel shoot of making my way down at the hotel, go down to the hotel bar, have a nightcap, and I'll just find the oldest people in there that are by themselves, and just a gentle, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Good, good. And I'm not hitting them up for business, okay? That's not what I'm doing. I just visit, and it means the world to people. The more isolated they are, the more I would encourage you, just say hello. You can go to the old folks' homes, the retirement communities. Absolutely, that's a place to fish for them. But more broadly, when you're in line at your HEB or wherever the hell you guys grocery shop in Arizona, say hello to that old lady in front of you and tell her to have a good day.
Yeah, yeah, that is extremely important. There's so many people. It's like, man, I don't want to talk to this person again because they're going to be on the phone for 45 minutes. But I'm like, because they don't have anyone to talk to. But I was like, going, Mike, it's like cut that out because the stories that they tell. There's this old couple. He's passed on. She's barely hanging on. They owned one of the largest drag racing boat companies. He
Wow.
drag raced boats, and I'm like,
Wow.
you know, and they ran, Miss Budweiser and all those things, those big.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yep. Yeah,
so
the stories, and maybe the stories aren't as grand as that. Maybe they're smaller. You know what I mean? Maybe he was a welder for 40 years, but the wisdom comes out. Like, go to them for advice. I do.
yeah,
What the hell does an old dude know about digital video working? Nothing. But they tend to know about common sense decision making that we tend to screw up more often.
yeah. That's right. It's like, how have you been married for 65 years? You
Totally.
know?
What's the secret? Well, I can already tell you that. I've asked, what, 500 people that. What's the secret?
Yeah.
Happy wife, happy life. That's the secret.
Yep.
That's the
I've
secret.
learned it. 2 words. Yes,
Say,
ma'am.
yeah,
Yes,
it's so
ma'am.
they're powerful. You get anything you want, dude.
Yeah, it's great. Everybody, again, it's Chance McClain with Heritage Films. If you're interested, I've already been on his website. I've looked at it. Are there any examples of what people can sit there and say, hey, I can do this or I can do this, and what it looks like
Yeah, on the
when you.
website, there are samples on the website, as well as just to further confuse your audience, which is a gift of mine. Farmandranchfilms.com is our company too for the agrarian life people. There's samples of what they look like. There's testimonials on the website, which I think are just as powerful. People often say, "Hey, can you send me a full film?" And I have had clients that have allowed me to release their full film. They're like, "Yeah, for sure." But it's hard because your dad is your dad, and the nuanced elements of his story are just some old man rambling to somebody else. But to you, that's my dad. That's him. Oh my gosh, I remember that. But yeah, there's samples to go on there and see. And if you reach out again, what I tend to do is if somebody's after they've told me here's who I am, if they're doing it for themselves, I'll find a clip that's germane to their existence. So if they're an oil and gas guy, I can pick one of those. If they're a naval veteran, I'll send you I'll send you a clip from a dude from UDT team or UDT class number
Uh,
two.
that's fascinating. Those guys are just coming. Well, Chance, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you,
the
Mike.
Richer Geek. It's been a pleasure, everybody. Heritage Films, Chance McClain. Check it out, and you don't have to be the owner of 100 hotels or anything like that. You just have to have family or just something to a story, right? Just
That's it.
all
Everyone's
you
got
have
a
to do.
story to tell. Yes, and,
That's
and
right.
and Mike, thank you so much, man. This has been a blast. Enjoyed visiting with you.
Absolutely. Take care.